Well, welcome everybody to the Empowering Process podcast. And this episode happens to be airing on Valentine's Day. So I thought I would pop in and share a little perspective with you on love. Take it as you wish. This is from my perspective and just a tip of the iceberg. You ready? Here we go. So let's start with the obvious, the 5 love languages. And let's talk a little bit about really how solid are they? And here's why. So one is words of affirmation. So sometimes for me, words of affirmation feel like platitudes and disingenuine. And yet there are times where I have received affirmations from those I care about, those I respect, those I love, and it's hit home. And it's because of the timing. And it's because it's something that I needed to hear at the time. Right now, for me, when I think of my love language, I actually think quality time is my love language. And why? Because for me, if I'm not laughing, if I don't have permission to play, if I can't just giggle a little bit, then it becomes a little bit too serious. It becomes a little bit heavy. And it, quite frankly, is not fun. So for me, if I'm not having joy, then I'm not really invested in the relationship. It is just an association. It's not really an expression of my love, both giving and receiving. It takes 2 to play. The other is physical touch. Now, I do love to curl up and snuggle on the bed. I do love being hugged. I consider myself a hugger. And in fact, if I'm not touched long enough or frequently enough in a relationship, I start to disconnect, right? And then there's acts of service. So how do you want to define acts of service when it comes to love? You know, I have a friend who he and his wife, they bake for the soup kitchens, they give to the poor, they do something every day together in service. That to me is acts of service where they join together in order to do this. And they do acts of service for each other. Breakfast in bed, that's an act of service, my friend. So is act of service once in a while, right? I do enjoy being pampered, right? Doesn't mean that that's necessarily my love language, but it's something that I will resonate with once in a while. And then receiving gifts. Now, I'm not much of a gift giver or a gift receiver. However, when those special occasions come around, if I am not recognized, like a happy birthday, that's all I need. A card, maybe, but a gift is not necessarily. In fact, I will give a quick little story of a relationship I was in a long time ago. And it was, I don't know if it was Valentine's Day. It was one of those days where the woman receives a gift. And the gentleman I was involved with literally drove me that day to a store, popped in and bought me a gift and came out with it. Now, that is not an act of love, right? That is like, oops, I forgot you. Took care of my mother, took care of other people in my life, but the woman that I am supposed to love and care for, I didn't think of. Now, I would have been happy with just breakfast cooked for me. That act really tainted the gift that I received. And yet there are other times where I received gifts that were exactly something that I needed, something that I wanted. It was perfect for me. And so it's not necessarily the gift, it's the thought or the intention behind the gift. But if I were to say, out of the 5 love languages, for me, it really is quality time that is most important. So we all resonate with all of them. Some people are actually repelled by the physical touch, like, they have to really trust you. I know someone who is very standoffish when they first meet you. They need to evaluate you, see how you fit in with their life and their family, to see whether or not your intentions are pure. But once you cross that line where they accept you, they will stand in front of a truck for you, right? And they will absolutely hug you. That physical touch is really, really important. And then I have another friend who she doesn't want to be touched. She doesn't want, unless you have been invited into her circle. And then it's still on her terms. So, some people are repelled by some of these. Does not matter. What my point is there is a dominant love language, maybe, but don't think that that's your only love language. And why is it so important? Because you need to let the person you care about know, either through demonstrating, or if that doesn't work, verbalizing, saying, hey, I need to snuggle up once in a while. Hey, if we're not having fun, I'm starting to get a little concerned about this relationship. So add on to that something else I really wanted to touch on, and that is trust. None of this matters. None of this if there isn't trust. When love first happens and we're feeling the heartstrings, right? And the birds are singing and we're shooting to the moon and we can't wait to see that person. We have tears in our eyes. Our heart is breaking when we leave. When that is over, if there isn't respect and trust, if that hasn't been built during that time, then do you really have a relationship of love? If there is not trust, if I can't trust you to hold a conversation with me, to respect me, to listen to me, to hear me, to support me, right? True love, honest love will die without the trust and the respect. And believe me, we bring our stories to the relationships. We bring our fears to the relationships. But at least for me, I put my story aside to support the person that I'm involved with. If they don't do the same, if they start not showing trust for me, it's a two-way street. I start to back off. I start to feel a little unsafe. So when it comes to love, trust, respect, and don't get stuck in just one of the languages, right? It's like any of these tests that you take, there is a dominant you, but not a predominant you. You are a complex individual. Allow your complexity to come through. And love, love, love. I will leave you with one thought that I left with my son when he was very, very young, when his first serious girlfriend broke up with him. And I happened to be 3,000 miles away. And he called in tears. And one of the things that I said to him is, I love the fact that you loved so deeply that you hurt this much. That's a beautiful thing, that you can love open-heartedly and deeply, and I encourage you to continue doing that. But there's a risk. There's a risk when you open your heart this much to hurt this much again. The good news is, when you find the right person and you open up your heart, it is the most beautiful thing. His response to me was, well, thanks, Mom, for the encouragement. However, he is involved in a marriage, in a relationship where their love is beyond. They trust each other, they respect each other, they honor each other, they listen to each other, they support each other, they plan together, they do things together. It is amazing how much the two of them have opened up their hearts, because when one opens up, the other has the space to also open up. And if they do too, that is when two people can come together without leaning on each other and depending on each other, but loving and trusting each other and moving forward in support and admiration and respect. May your love shine today on Valentine's Day. And I thank you so much for spending time with me. This is Gail Kraft from the Empowering Process podcast. listen for other podcasts where I'm actually interviewing people. Thank you, everyone. And my heart goes out to you. Love, love, love.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailkraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.